Alright everybody, it's Monday, March 14th. I almost forgot what day it is. I've been working a lot. My wife's over laughing at me. I've been working a lot overtime and still got a lot ahead of me, but it's pretty good, Doug, so I get to buy some more hunting toys. She likes that too. Anyway, I'm going to do a video today, one I've been wanting to do for quite a while, and I've been waiting to get one more Euro mountain bike that buddy did for me this year. Got back the other day. I've actually had a couple people ask about some of the things on the wall, some of my critters. This is not everything I've ever killed, but this is everything I've got mounted in the last few years. I've started doing Euro mounts for a friend of mine. I did one or two myself, and a friend of mine has done some. So you're going to see my piebald I got a couple years ago. You're going to see my first and only bear I've ever got. I've gotten several turkeys and bears and stuff. I've got some of that to show you. You'll see my oldest son's first turkey and first deer he ever got, and you'll see my youngest son's first deer, and you'll see the first deer I ever got mounted, because my wife talked me into it. So I'll try to tell you a little quick story with each one. I'm trying not to make this video too long. Quick story, we live in a single-wide Oakwood mobile home. We got married in '97. As part of our wedding gift, her dad gave us an acre of land, and we was living in a different area at the time. I got trained. I worked for a major restaurant that sold pizzas. That's about all I'm gonna say about that. I've been with them for over 20 years, but I was transferred around, and we got transferred back to her hometown, was where I met her at. And we bought this place in '98 and paid it off a couple years ago. We've raised two boys in here. One's moved out. One's on his way of moving out, I do believe. He might be moving out shortly. And just be me and my wife and all the animals. So we got several deers. We got several dogs and cats and birds and all kinds of hamsters and all kinds of critters right out here. But I'm going to show you all the ones on the wall that are mine. And try not to drag this out too long, but I'll go ahead and get started here. We'll start over here with the turkey. I'll get behind the camera and start right over here. Sorry about the lighting. I was wanting to keep the door open, but my front-in-law's got dogs, and every time they seem like they know every time I want to record. That right there is the only hen that I've ever killed. I shot her in the fall. I don't remember what year it was. I was actually hunting for them because I'd been hunting in that area for about a week or so, and every Saturday morning I went up there. They was roosting in the same group of pine trees. So opening morning of fall turkey season in the county I live in, we only get a week. It comes in on a Saturday. At the time went out the following Saturday, but now we can hunt on Sundays. It gives us an extra day or two. But I set up next to an old logging road, I believe it was, and I had a decoy set up in front of me, and it actually almost cost me because the decoy spooked him. And but I actually got one in close enough to get one. So that was my hen fall turkey. Right there is my son's first turkey. If I'm not mistaken, he shot two. Both in the spring gobbler, he shot those with a gun. And I shot her with a shotgun. He shot that with a gun also. That was his. I believe he's gotten two, but I know that was his first one. Let me try to get this camera down. Right there is a painting that my wife did for me because she knows I love bears. And right there is something we picked up somewhere along the line many years ago. And then right above it is my piebald. I'll zoom in here a little bit. I shot him in 2020. Funny thing is, I was up there hunting on Halloween, and a buck that I shot a little bit later that year, I'll show you in a little bit. I shot at, Halloween was on Saturday that evening. I shot at him right before dark, and he was like 26, 27 yards, shot right under his belly. He took off. That was on Saturday. My kids went to Halloween party. They was both living here at the time, I think, yeah. And they both went to a Halloween party. No, my oldest son moved out. My youngest son spent the night with him, so they went to a Halloween party that night. So my wife was not feeling well, so the next morning we didn't go to church. So I got the next morning and got back in the same tree, and the buck that I shot at come through, and I missed him again. He come down a different trail, and I missed him like 24 yards that time. Shot right under his belly again. And About an hour later, I saw this guy, but I didn't know he was a deer at the time, chasing well, I just saw him falling. I saw a doe, and I saw him going through the woods, and I just saw a patch of white. And the lady that owns a farm up behind her house, we go up there and help her with. She's a goat farmer, too. She has tons of goats. And that's the first thing I thought. One of her goats got out and across the road. And then a few minutes later, he come back by, and he stepped out into the road where I could see him real good, and I could see it was a deer. But at the time, I didn't know it was a buck. And I text my wife, and I said, oh my gosh, there's an albino or a piebald, but a deer up here. And she said, oh my God, you're going to shoot one of our neighbor's goats. She shot the thing I did. I said, no, I seen almost the whole body. I seen everything but the head, and I could tell it was a deer. I said, no, it's a deer. She didn't believe me. So he run that over the hill, so I got out of the tree, and I tried to stalk over and get a shot at it. And I was carrying my bum in one hand and my phone in the other one. And I was almost to my four-wheeler. And this thing, I went around the curve, and this thing was standing like 30 yards in front of my four-wheeler. And I had my phone real quick, and I just got like a 4-second video of it before it jumped over in the woods. And at that time, I thought it was still a doe. I didn't get a real good look at it. So Monday come around, I went to work next morning, and of course I was telling everybody at work, and everybody was asking me, you gonna shoot it? You gonna shoot it? And I said, if it steps out in front of me, I will. So Monday evening, I couldn't wait to get home Monday evening. I flew home after work, took a shower, got up on the hill real quick, got up in the tree, and I was in the tree 15 minutes, and that deer that I had missed, the two previous, Saturday night and Sunday morning, the 8-point, come in and was feeding around me. I mean, he was around me for 15 minutes, and I knew this deer was in the area. I never had any trail cam pictures of him, but I knew he was in the area, so I wasn't about to shoot the other one. And I was waiting, hoping, waiting this guy was going to show up. Well, about 15 minutes later, he was up on the hill where I saw him the day before, and he come walking down the hill right toward me. And at the time, I had a different camera, and I was actually doing my little intro video when the 8-point was coming up the hill. I hadn't been in the tree probably 5 or 10 minutes. And right in the middle of my intro video, the battery died. And I knew right then something good was going to happen because my battery had died. So I did have my little action cam GoPro. If you look back on my YouTube channel, I may even put a link to the video in this video. It's titled Deer of a Lifetime or Buck of a Lifetime. I can't remember what I called it. But the only thing I got was me shooting the deer on video on my action cam and my reaction. And then everything else I got on my cell phone after I went and got the recovery. He didn't run very far. But the only piebald I ever got, I've seen 2 albino does before in the summertime, just out riding around evenings. Never seen a deer while hunting, and never even dreamed I would. But definitely a dream come true, and I would shoot all over again. And I had a lot of, of course I posted on several different Facebook sites that I was on, and had a lot of good comments except for one. And I had one really hateful comment. A guy literally cussed me for shooting it, said I should have let it go, and so it could spawn, produce more deer. Well, he's a freaking idiot, because if anybody knows, that's a genetic defect in deers, and they can't spread that to other deers by mating. So, and by the way, I wouldn't pass it up another one if I had to. I don't care. So, some people would, some people wouldn't. So that's your personal choice. But anyway, that's those right there. So I'm gonna move over here real quick and show you right there. That is the rest of the hide that didn't get used on the mount. And if you do notice, I did get a couple of these feet down here on the bottom mounted. But that's the rest of his hide right there. And I'll move up in the corner here a little bit. And sorry about the lighting. We ain't got better good lighting in this living room here. We did remodel this place a couple of years ago. And we put some paneling on the bottom and put some cedar paneling on the top. I thought it would go good like a wildlife thing. The first doe right there, the big doe. I'll try to work this camera here a little bit. That is my oldest son's first deer. I told both of them when they went hunting I would get their first deer mounted. Quick little story about her. That's a public land deer. He shot her with a muzzleloader. We got a week for muzzleloading season, and at the time we couldn't hunt on Sundays. So I had went hunting that morning on public land. I was in a climber, hunting out a climber at the time. Climbed up in a tree, and there was a big doe and a younger one. I was in hunting for a couple hours, and They come down the hill and I shot a doe. I shot the big doe. Long story short, I come home, worked her up. It was getting warm that in the day. My mother-in-law lived up on the hill behind us at the time. She had some things she needed done around her house, so I went up there and did that. And then my oldest son wanted to go hunting, and my youngest son, he had been a few times sit with us, but he wanted to go along with us as well. So I took both of them back to the same spot, and we actually sit at the base of the tree that I was in earlier that morning. And about 30 minutes before dark, this doe and another one come up out of the holler. And they was walking right toward us. And I kept telling them, I said, shoot her, shoot her, shoot her. I mean, I thought, literally, she was only about 30 yards when he shot her. And I don't see how, because she saw us about 60 yards out and just kept coming up to us and beating her, stomping her foot on the ground. And anyway, he eventually shot her, and she ran up on the hill, and we tracked her down. And my youngest son was wanting to sit there and shoot another one. He was wanting to shoot one, but I told him, I said, it's getting dark, and we got to go get her and get her out of here. So he got a little mad, but he got over it because he's got one a little bit later. I'm going to move this camera over a little bit. And right here, this is the couple things on this deer. This is one of my very first 8-point that I ever shot. I'd shot a couple nice 7-points up to that point, but that was the first 8-point I ever shot. And that is the very first animal that I ever got mounted. And my wife talked me into it. And it was also the first buck that I had shot in probably like 3 or 4 years. Because at the time I was really hard and heavy into the Outdoor Channel and all these hunting shows. And I bought into the theory, let the little ones walk and do this and do that, buy this product, buy that product to shoot these big deer. And I bought into that for like 3 years. And never shot a buck. Shot several does, but let several bucks, probably a little bit better than him, walk by. Because I thought any time next year there's going to be a monster shot out. Anyway, I really drank the Kool-Aid for too long and woke up, and I was hunting one year. It was early in the season. He come by, shot him, tickled the death of him. His body was, I mean, he had a huge body on his rack. I don't know if he was an older deer or what. I never did get him aged or anything, but for his rack size, his rack size did not match his body. He was a huge, probably one of the biggest deer I ever shot, but he was the first buck I ever got mounted. And right here is my youngest son's first doe. Oh, it's getting a little fuzzy. Let me try zoom in a little bit. That is my youngest son. He killed 2 deer, and he is an absolute animal lover. He's 19, he'll be 20 this year. I don't remember. And both of them deer was, well, no, that deer was shot during muzzleloading season. This deer was shot during youth season. Because here in West Virginia, youth can only shoot does, and that does need to change. Because I don't know how many times I had my oldest son hunting on youth day, and I think it was like 2 years in a row. The only thing we saw was a spike, and I had to tell him he couldn't shoot it, and he was too young to understand, but rules are rules. I understand that, but you know, to me personally, I think that needs to change. Youth hunters ought to be able to shoot, as long as it's legal, ought to be able to shoot what they want. But if you notice the unique look on that deer's face, and by the way, I use the same taxidermist for all these, everything you see here as far as mounts, and it's Buckhorn Taxidermy in Princeton, West Virginia. If you need any information on it, just leave it in a comment, and I'll give you some information on that. But he was my youngest son. We kind of made fun of it because I said when that deer stepped out, he looked over in the blind at us, which it did, and he shot it with a .243. Actually, the same gun I still hunt with right now. But I told him, I said, "Did you see that?" She looked over the blind and went, "Oh no!" And you shot her, which she didn't really. She looked at us, but he was young enough. He believed that story, and he told everybody that story. That she looked at him right before he shot her and said, "Oh no!" So when we went to the taxidermy, he was little, and he told the taxidermy the story, and he said, "Can you make her look like she said 'oh no' when she shot?" And he searched and searched, and he told me he had a really hard time, but he was a really good guy, and he said that's about as close as he could find. And anyway, my youngest son, he just absolutely loved it, so that's why she's got such an odd look on her face. Well, every mount I've got on this wall, regardless how big, how small, every one of them's a trophy. But right here, I'd have to say, was dream come true. I'm sorry for the lighting. It's not focusing in very good. But that right there is my one and only bear. I've come close a couple times, maybe getting another one. But that one always holds a special place in my heart and my mind. And I hope till the day I die that memory never leaves my head, my mind, because it was really awesome. But he wasn't a very big bear. He was 140 pounds, and that was live weight. And I shot him in 2011. Yeah, I was going to say 2010, but it was 2011. Public land buck, public land bear. That bear literally come up over the hill, and it was about an hour before dark, and literally I could have spit on him. I was in an oak tree about 15 foot up, and he walked directly under my tree. I mean, he was directly underneath me. I was shaking so bad I thought I was going to fall out. At the time, I was in a tree stand. And he literally walked about, I shot him at about 7 or 8 yards where I shot him at. And I was so nervous, I almost missed, but I heart shot him. And he poured the blood, but he ran downhill, so he ran probably about 150 yards into a thicket. And tell you a quick story on this video. It's getting a little long, but I want to tell you a funny story about this one. I was shaking so bad that I called my wife, and I was hyperventilating, and I couldn't. My legs was locked. I couldn't move. All I could do was call her, and get my bow back on the rack. And she was making dinner here at the house, and she talked to me for I know probably what 5 or 10 minutes to calm me down just enough so I could sit in the stand. And she talked to me for like 10 minutes till I was calm enough to where I could get out of the stand. Almost left my bow in the stand. I was almost getting out of the tree and forgot to let my bow up there. I had to go back up and get it. Got down, run to my car, flew home, got her and the boys. They all wanted to go with me because I was hunting next to a big cornfield the DNR planted, and I thought that I actually saw him fall. But the thing is, I didn't see him get back up because I was so nervous. And so I got up, come back and got her. I said, no, I seen him fall. I know exactly where he's at. Well, we went and tracked him, started tracking him, and where he fell at, I found the area, and it was just blood everywhere. Well, we tracked him probably another 100 yards, and he left the cornfield and went into a thicket. And there was another truck parked up close to where I was parked at, and it was still there when we pulled in. And anyway, we tracked it down there, and it was getting dark. At the time, I didn't have a pistol or anything with me. All I had was my bow. And I had never heard a death moan before. She's over there laughing. But that thing moaned out. And I think my oldest son said he peed himself, didn't he? Yeah, he actually peed himself a little bit. She screamed, and she said the hair on the back of her neck stood up. He said they was going through the car. And I was like, no, that's the other hunter down here. And I started hollering. I said, hey, buddy, would you come and help me get my bear out of this mess? And she said, you can stay here if you be an idiot if you want. Me and my kids are going back to the car. And they took off running. And I stood there by myself, and it was getting dark, and I could hear something over there crashing around. So I thought better of it, and I left. And so at the time, there was well, I guess still is, a guy that's married to her cousin. He's shot a lot of bears and helped a lot of people get bears out of the woods, and he was working on the railroad at the time. So I tried to get hold of him. He was working, so I got a hold of her uncle. And he got a hold of him for me, and he was going to get back home that night, late that night. So he told me he would meet me up there early the next morning. So the next morning he met me up there, and we tracked it. And this bear was only laying probably 30 yards over in the brush. He died, and I guess he was over trying to get up or whatever. I guess we scared him, but he scared us. But like I said, that was an all-around great hunt. And I had never skinned the bear. Well, he had me skin it out. But I'd never processed a bear before, and I had a ton of people asking me for bear meat, so I didn't get to keep a whole lot of it myself, but I did eat it. I was the only one to eat. No, Tony ate some of it, didn't he? Yeah, my oldest son ate some of it, but my wife refused to eat it. But it was very good, very greasy, but very good. So, but I've learned a lot since then. So I would definitely love to get another one. And like I said, I've come close a couple times, but and I also have the remaining hide that they didn't have. They didn't use on the mount. It's in our bedroom. And it's done like that. It Wasn't meant to make a rug or anything out of it. It was just tanned, but it's hanging in on the wall above our bed in our bedroom. But it is the most expensive mount too. I'm not going to mention how much it was, but it's definitely the most expensive mount that I've got too.
Well worth it.
Oh yeah, it's well worth it. I'll do it again in a heartbeat. I was going to get a rug made out of it, and the guy told me it was going to run about $2,500. And I was like, yeah, no, that's quite all right. But I will say this mount here cost me over $1,000 just to get a half body mount on that one. So anyway, I'm gonna move the camera around a little bit. This right here is a point, and to date, that is probably my biggest deer of my life. That deer, I don't remember the year it was killed. It's been a few years now. I'll zoom in a little bit if I can. Like I said, it's lighting. How good it'll be. Yeah. I never had him scored. I've never had any animal scored. That deer actually showed up on camera the Sunday of the second week of gun season that year. But at that time, they had select counties you could gun hunt. I mean, you could hunt on Sundays in select counties, but this county was not one of them. And I checked my camera, and he showed up that morning. And so the second week of gun season, this deer showed up, and I had a bunch of does on one of my feeders. I shot him right across the road. I had never had a trail cam picture of this buck before, and so Monday after work, I went up there, and between 7 a.m. and 7:15, he was in there every morning. I hunted up there every evening, and he never showed up in the evening time, but he was in there every morning like clockwork between 7 and 7:15. And every day I was up there hunting in the evening. I thought for sure I was going to bump him out of there, but he never showed up in the evenings. I don't know if he just knew I was up there or what. And I was out of vacation time at the time of my work. At that time, I think that year I only had 2 weeks vacation, and I was already out of vacation time. So just really, it was. I probably could have got off work, but I would have had to made up my time, and it was just not worth it to me. But every evening I was going up there and checking the camera, and he was in there every morning. And then Tuesday came, Wednesday came, Thursday came, and every evening I was in there. And I kept telling myself, I don't need to hunt up here because I'm going to bust him out of here. Thursday come, Friday evening come, and he was in there every morning. Finally, Saturday morning come, and I was off work. And I went up there and I got in the stand. And I thought for sure he's going to show up. Well, 7 o'clock come, no deer. 7:15 come, no deer. But the does started pouring in there. 7:30 come, no deer. 8 o'clock come, no deer. At least not him anyway. All kinds of does in there. There was no bucks. And I was like, man, I knew it. I knew I done blew it. And I was sitting there and I was disgusted. I was getting ready to just get out of the tree. But I had does all around me. And then 8:15, no, he still didn't show up. And just out of the blue, at 8:30, I looked up on the hill, and just out of nowhere, he was standing there about 80 yards broadside it. Oh my God, my heart started beating. And by this time, most of the does had already hit the feeder and was walking off. And he was with a doe. And she walked over into the brush, and there were some other does leaving the feeder, walking up that way, and he was sitting there just watching all of them. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know which doe he was following. And I was like, oh my gosh, watch him lead, because I didn't have much of a shot at him because there was a bunch of brush. And I thought for sure he was going to follow the does on around the side of the hill, and I wasn't going to get a shot at him. Well, he walked over into the brush where I could just barely see his body, and I could see some does up there walking around. Well, there was one doe that would come walking down the hill toward the feeder, and he started following her. Man, my heart started beating harder and harder. And anyway, he got within about 40 or 50 yards. I can't remember what it was. And he was facing dead on me, and I had the scope on him the whole time. And he had his nose to the ground trailing that doe, and all of a sudden he just stopped and looked up, I guess, to see where she was at or whatever. And I put the crosshairs right at the base of his throat in between his butt chest. Shot him at the 243, and he dropped right there. He never even moved. So that was the, like I said, up to date. I've shot a couple Sun Points. I don't have the racks anymore. I don't know if they was as wide as he was, but their time length was a lot longer than what he was. But I would go ahead and willing to say he's probably my best buck to date. So I'm going to move on around here a little bit, and I'll probably zoom out. And if you see that crossbow up on the top up there, For several years, I was a archery coach for the National Archery in the School program. I haven't done it the last 2 years, mainly because work, and same thing this year. I've really done a lot of overtime this year. Last year I've done a lot of overtime, just didn't have a chance to help out. But my son shot in that program since he was in 9th grade and all 4 years of high school. And I helped coach all of it. I helped coach the high school mainly. But one year, another coach, his daughter, she shoots recurve in the IBO, and she's really good. Well, somebody had come across that bow. He had bought, one of the other coaches had bought that bow, and he bought the practice one evening and wanted to know if somebody wanted to buy it. And it's a Fred Bear recurve, and I think it was only like $40 for it, and Cody wanted it really bad, so I'll end up buying it for him. And when he moved out, he said he didn't want it. He just left it here. He was wanting to shoot a deer with it, but like I said, it's a 50-pound recurve. And if you know anything about recurves, they have absolutely no let off on them. I was actually contemplating trying to take it hunting this past year and shoot a deer with it, but man, that thing, even for me, that thing is pretty stout. So I would love to shoot a deer with a recurve, but I might try to find me something that's a little bit lighter. Getting old, you know, I just can't shoot like I used to. But anyway, I thought that would go good for a little momentum up there. Now this right here, and I don't know if you can see the pictures in there very good. I'll try to zoom in. There's a guy at work. Me and him's becoming really, really good friends over the last several years. And he surprised me one day with this about 2 years ago, and he made this himself. And if you can see, it's got the Browning emblem carved in it. I'm not sure if he did that or what, but he put it together. He had that burnt stain, or I'm not sure exactly how he made it, but he made that for me. And I'll try to zoom in on the pictures right there. He pulled some pictures off Facebook. That right there is a picture of me and my bear in the back of the truck when I bought it home that day. Right there is my son's first turkey, which we saw the tail over on the hill. Right there is my youngest son. That's his first deer, which is the one over on the wall that I showed you. And right there is the buck that's the buck over here on the wall that I just showed you. Was the first deer I ever got mounted. But he pulled them pictures off Facebook and went ahead and printed off and made that for me. And I had no idea. So he's made a lot of stuff for me since then. And speaking of him, he has also done some Euro mounts for me. Now this one here, this buck here, this was the first Euro mount that I ever did myself. I tried it, I liked it. A little bit of work into it, but that's the first Euro mount that I did myself. And I'll tell you a little story behind this buck. I was actually bow hunting in a ground blind one night, and my youngest son was sitting there with me. And, oh no, I've got the story backwards. I was at a tree stand one night. It was on a Friday evening. I was in a tree stand one evening. And after work, I went up there and I was hunting. There was a scrape like 10 yards right behind my tree. This buck had come out of the neighbor's field right before dark, and he was about 60 yards away. And it was getting so dark, I literally, until he jumped the fence, I thought it was a doe. And then jumped the fence and he made a beeline right over to the scrape right behind me. But it was so dark I could barely make out his body. But he's only like 10 yards away. So I stood up and I pulled my bow back, and I had to kind of turn to my right. And I was kind of twisted a little bit because there was a limb right beside me. And I couldn't even see through my peep sight. So I could just barely make out his outline of his body. So I shouldn't even have shot, but I shot where I thought his front leg might be. And when I shot, I heard wham! And I thought for sure I got him, and he took off running, and I heard him run over the hill, but I didn't hear him crash. So I waited about 10 minutes. I didn't use lighted knocks at the time. Got down out of the tree and walked over, and I had shot a log that was laying right beside the scrape. So I missed him completely. And by the way, my broadhead is still buried in that log up there. It was buried up, and I couldn't get it out, so I just unscrewed it and left it in there. I didn't remember what kind of broadhead it was at the time. So the next evening, was a Saturday evening, I got up there and went hunting, and my youngest son wanted to go just sit in the blind. He wanted to go with me, so I said, well, if he goes, I'm going to have to go sit in the blind. So next evening, I went up there, and me and him went with me. He went with me, And I was sitting in the blind, and it was probably about a half hour, 45 minutes before dark. This deer had come in just the opposite way that he'd come from the night before. And he didn't even go to the scrape. He walked right by the scrape and come within probably 20 yards of my blind and give me a broadside shot. So that was a pretty unique story on that deer. But that was also my first Euro mount. That one there, I forgot to mention. This one, the guy I go to church with told me the way he does his mounts. And I don't know how well you can see it. It kind of looks a little dingy. I actually buried that in the ground outside. I dug a hole because I shot him in late November. So I dug a hole and just left the antlers up, and I had an old spare tire I put over top of it and put a board and a cinder block over top of it so dogs couldn't dig it up. And I dug it up in the springtime, and I just sprayed it off real good with a water hose and tried to put a little bit of bleach to get some of the dirt and smell out of it. But I don't know how well you can tell, but it's kind of like a little rustic look to it. But I really like that one. But that was my first Euro mount that I did right there. And then these two deer right here, my buddy that made the plaques for me, he Euro mounted both these deer for me. And both of these are kind of unique. If you look at this one right here, that was a spike. And the one horn is coming straight out of his head. And the other horn is growing right down in front of his eye. I don't know if he was blind, couldn't see out of it or what. I don't know if you can tell, but right on the very tip of it is velvet. But my oldest son actually missed that deer about 2 weeks prior to that. We was in a two-man stand. He missed it with a crossbow at about 40 yards and shot right underneath it. And I knew the deer was in the area. And I was up there hunting one evening, and I think he might have been here at the house. And I was on the opposite end of the property, and that deer come walking down over the hill, and I texted him. I said, because I kept calling him your deer, his deer. I said, your deer's up here, and it's walking right toward me. He said, shoot that sucker. So I did, and I shot that deer at about 10 yards. Pretty unique deer there. And this deer here was the first deer I ever shot out of my saddle. I started saddle hunting in 2019. And he's a 7-point, and I had a bigger 7-point up there on camera. And, yeah, my wife's giving me a drink. Oh, don't a lot of talking, my throat's getting dry. I had a bigger 7-point on camera, but I noticed, and I don't know if you can tell how good the video, but he still had velvet on his horn. This was like late October. And as soon as I seen that, I was like, man, that's going to be a unique trophy. So I shot him. And shot him at about 35 yards. He ran. I seen him take off running. And probably had about almost an hour before dark, really. And so I sat there for a few minutes, and I got down, and I come home and got my wife. She said she'd jump in and help me track him. So by that time, it was starting to get dark, so we went and tracked him, and he was heading toward the neighbor's property on a deer trail. So we just happened to be going through this little ditch and was going up the other side. And at the top of the hill was the neighbor's property. And I thought, well, he's heading over there. And she just happened to shine the light down over the hill. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, he's down over the hill. And she shined his light. And, of course, he was rolled probably 30 yards down over the hill right in a big old briar patch. So and this hill is pretty steep, too. So I went down over the hill to get him. And I didn't gut him out over there, which I wish I would have. It helped a little bit. But he was right in the middle of a briar patch. I was dragging. I mean, I was literally on my hands and knees, had his one horn in one hand, and grabbing hold of trees with the other hand to pull me and him up over the hill. And I was literally, what do you think, 6 feet, 8 feet from the path that she was standing on?
Closer than that, I was reaching out.
Yeah, she was reaching for me. I mean, I was almost holding up. And his horn, not the one with the velvet on it, but the other one, snapped off. Literally snapped off, and he rolled back down the hill right where he was at. Oh, I was so freaking mad, and it was so steep. And I was in disbelief. I was sitting there, literally 4 feet from getting on the trail that I needed to, up over the bank, and I was sitting there with a horn in my hand. I couldn't believe it happened. And so anyway, I gave her the horn, and I went back down over the hill, and I drug him up out of the briar patch off to the side of the hill. I ended up gutting him, and I still had to, now I had to drag him over around, around the side of the hill and try to get him up over another part of the hill, which still was pretty steep. But anyway, my buddy that does my Euro mounts for me, he Euro mounted both of them for me at the same time and put them on that plaque. He made that plaque for me too. And I've got a couple other things I'm going to show you, some of my recent turkeys and two other, another Euro mount that he did for me, the 8-point that I shot this year. So I'm already 35 minutes into this video, so I'm going to turn it off and get these set up on the table and I'll show you real quick. Hi guys, I know this video is already about 35 minutes long and I've been kind of a winded storyteller, but I just love talking about stories about my hunting and stuff. But anyway, I'll get into this real quick. This 8-pointer right here is the same one that I missed on Halloween night, shot right under his belly. Sunday morning, I shot right underneath his belly. And then he was the same one that was in there Monday evening when I shot my piebald over here. And I actually ended up shooting this deer probably about a week or two later. And the funny thing is, he was only probably 10 yards from the same spot that I shot the piebald. I was in the same tree and he was only about 10 yards apart. But I missed that deer twice before I finally got him the third time. And that is that's a fake Euro mount. Let's see, it's called Mountain Mike's taxidermy. I think I got it off Amazon. It's okay looking. It's a pretty good sized skull. I think it's, I don't know. I actually bought two of them off Amazon when I bought them, but I ain't really all that crazy about it. I'll probably never do that again. But anyway, that's the 8-point there. And this 8-point right here is actually the only buck that I shot this past year. I shot him, I think around November the 6th or 7th or 8th this year, something like that. My anniversary was on the 8th. No, it was after that. It's probably around November 10th this year. But I shot him up on the hill this year. The only buck that I shot this year was only buck period that I shot. But that was the 8-point I shot. And my buddy, I just got that back the other day. The one that does my other Euro mounts, did that one for me. And he doesn't charge me anything. And he does a really, really good job. But right here is my, well, you can see that. This is my turkey from last year. And right there is the other one. I was able to get two last year. And I don't know how well you can see. I'm going to try to lay these right here. I saw this on YouTube. That way you can see these with the lighting. Kind of a little neat craft that I saw on YouTube. See if I can't find the video and post it down below or something. But we just went to Hobby Lobby and got some, like a little piece of leather string, some beads. Took the shotgun, get a little bit closer, you might be able to see it. The shotgun shell that I got, I cut the plastic part off, drilled out the centerpiece, and it's all glued up in there. I took the beard and just put some beads, cleaned up the spurs, and put them on there. And I haven't hung them up yet, but I did both of them like that. Neat little projects. But my wall's getting pretty full, so I think I'm going to start putting all these things down the hallway. It's about the only place I've got left, unless I've got some room in my bedroom in there to start putting them up with. But other than that, there is one more that I want to show you. Actually, I almost forgot about it. I'll see if I can. It's a little dusty. I forgot to dust him off. That is the very first turkey that I ever shot in my life. The guy that helped me, the guy that's married to my wife's cousin, the one that helped me get my bear, I don't remember what year it was, but he took me turkey hunting for the first time. I'd went a couple times in my life before that, but I'd never done very good. I absolutely had no idea what I was doing. And the beard off of him is the one right here. That's his beard. And if you wonder why it's so thin, I let him get so close. He was only like 20, 25 yards when I shot him, and I shot half his beard off. And him and the other guy with us was laughing at me because I let it get so close because I thought I was going to miss it. And I don't know how well you can see it, but right there is, let's see, no, it ain't that one. Which one is it? Oh, this one here on the end. This was the very next weekend, the very first turkey I ever shot by myself. I guess it was considered a Jake. It was only about a 5-inch beard, but that was the second turkey I ever killed by myself. And there's a couple more in here. I'm not sure what them beards go from, but I have probably killed I don't know, maybe 6, 7 turkeys since I've been turkey hunting. I shot one with my bow. I had his feathers, but I think a cat or something got a hold of him and tore them all up, and I've got his beard right here somewhere. But it was actually in the fall. I was hunting in my ground blind one day, and actually hunting for deer, and just happened to look over, and here come 3 gobblers up over the hill, and they walked within literally about 10 or 12 yards of my blind. So I shot one of them, and that's the only turkey I've ever shot with my bow. But like I said, I no longer have the feathers for him, but I've got the beard right here somewhere. But anyway, guys, that pretty much wraps up my little trophy wall, is what I call it. I don't have a man cave. I got a man corner just because we live in such a small house. But anyway, if you have any questions about any of these critters on the wall, just leave down in the comments. And like I said, I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I've had a couple of people ask. And I know a lot of times in my videos, you'll see me sitting at a table right here with some of these in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video right now before it gets any longer. I hope I didn't bore y'all too much. Thanks for watching.